Donald Trump's central promise in both his first term and this term is to stop immigration, including by building the wall. I think he was stymied in his first term for a number of reasons, but the main one was that his team was not truly committed to his radical reforms on this or other issues. I mean, really, he was a revolutionary. He hired people, though, whose primary loyalty was to the Washington system, not to him or his agenda. And they would nod politely when he said things like stop immigration, and then they would go about undermining him quietly. It was the dictionary definition of the deep state. And I think Trump thought about that every single day he was in political exile. You can see it in two obvious ways. First, the constant expressions of loyalty by his new crop of appointees. The entire cabinet, many other senior appointees, whenever they talk to the media, they always start by mentioning President Trump first when asked about their accomplishments or decisions. It might look over the top and obsequious, but after a term, Trump's first term, when many of his appointees clearly despised the man and clearly were working against him, it's sort of required, don't you think? I mean, sure, it's a loyalty test, but loyalty to the project that Trump promised voters and that voters asked for. And second, look at the meticulously detailed battle plan that was rolled out starting literally within minutes of Trump's inauguration. Hundreds of bold executive orders, some of them very detailed, tackling everything from the border to woke universities to drilling for oil again. Whatever you think of Trump, you must admit he is doing exactly what he said he would do, including taking on the deep state in bold ways. I mean, the appointment of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. alone is a momentous move, something that no COVID skeptic could ever have hoped for, even in Trump's first term. And in terms of sheer impact with severely normal people, Trump banned men from participating in women's and girls' sports and in women's and girls' bathrooms and change rooms. Just huge and real life. And right out of the gates, it was a miracle in a way, but not a miracle at all when you think about it, just a willingness to do what needs to be done and a lack of fear and a lack of patience. He's been thinking about these things for a long time, like when Napoleon was in exile. And look at what Trump's done in addition to his basic promises. Did you even know that there were 8 wars out there to resolve, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the number that Trump has concluded, negotiated a peace deal? Some are still persisting, like the huge war between Russia and Ukraine. But Trump has resolved many others, including some that have trudged on for decades and have massive casualty counts. Trump really is the president of peace, but as he always says, peace through strength, and you know that's why. The world is safer now than when he took office, especially the Middle East. And all Trump had to do there was to sell weapons to Israel so it could do the heavy lifting against Hezbollah in Lebanon, against Hamas in Gaza, and against the Iranian conventional military, taking out their missile launchers and anti-aircraft systems. It is true that Trump deployed 7 B-2 bombers to surgically strike Iran's nuclear bases. Only America could do that because only America has the B-2. But he did that after the Israeli army had wiped out those anti-aircraft defenses in Iran. It was an important role that Trump did, but you couldn't really say it rose to the level of a war. And Trump is shooting drug smuggling boats coming up from the Caribbean and South America. Again, I don't think you could say it's a war. And my point that I'm trying to make here is that Trump has been very reserved in his use of military force. He likes peace through strength. And I promise I'm coming to my point here, and my point is this. Trump has done exactly what he promised to do. The biggest thing is to stop new immigration and engage in mass deportations. I saw the other day that they crossed the 2 million mark of deportations. He's also renegotiating trade deals around the world, including, for example, deals we talked about, like the one the other day guaranteeing America access to Malaysia's rare earth minerals, something that China has been trying to get a monopoly on. Those are important minerals for tech products. Massive investments in America by countries trying to avoid tariffs, and I'm sorry that has hurt Canada, or at least our auto sector, but I'm making the point here that Americans must be pleased with Trump. He's whipping through his checklist. He's going full tilt. He's living like he's counting the minutes left in his term. So imagine being someone like me in America, imagine being a firebrand conservative pundit. What do you fight for? Trump is doing all the things you could ever ask him to do, including a lot more you probably never think of. I mean, just this week, he called on Congress to release all the Jeffrey Epstein files. Here in Canada, conservatives, by contrast, have a lot to campaign on. Same in the United Kingdom, same in Ireland, same in France, same in Netherlands, and Brazil, and all the places that are still laboring under the leftist globalist ideology. But it's tougher to be a tough guy pundit in America when Donald Trump and the government that he runs, I mean, you love to critique the government. It's actually bolder than any pundit. I mean, what do you even talk about? Well, anything, I suppose. Conspiracy theories, I suppose. What Candace Owens is focused on is Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France. Is his wife actually a man? That was what Candace Owens is focusing on because Trump is really just rocking his to-do list. Molehills are being made into mountains. And so it is that a fraction of the online right say they're tired of Trump. They're tired of winning. They think he's not pure enough. They think he's not right-wing enough or America first enough. I have no idea who they think would be better. I'm not sure how it could even be possible to be tougher than him. And by the way, to still win elections, I suppose you could be the most pure conservative in the world and lose. But what's the point of that? Trump's point is that he's a winner. But I see an online rebellion against Trump. Now, a lot of it is by people who pretend to be conservative, but who never really were and never really supported Trump in the first place. Here's Nick Fuentes, the head of the troll army, who voted against Trump last time.
In my opinion, if you're a Catholic, you can't vote for Trump. You cannot vote for somebody who is now frequently supporting abortion rights. Frequently. It seems like every week he supports abortion. Catholics should not support Trump. If you are anti-war, you cannot support Trump. Trump is the World War III candidate. Trump is talking about wiping Iran off the map. That's where the war is going to go nuclear, not Ukraine. You can't vote for Trump. If you're an immigration restrictionist, you can't vote for Trump. They're not deporting any illegals. Okay, that's not happening. They admitted as much. And they're going to bring in more legal immigrants than ever before. And if you think there's some silver lining that we're going to get jobs in the Trump admin, maybe it's bad, but we're going to get in and fix it, think again. Because the personnel are going to be controlled by Jared Kushner. None of these people can vote for Trump. I'm calling on Catholics, anti-war supporters, immigration restrictionists, and MAGA loyalists to stay home and not vote for Trump. And if we go forward with any operations with Groyper War II, from now on, that is the goal. At one point, it was to get Trump's attention. Going forward, it's going to be to get people not to vote, period.
Fuentes said he actually organized against Trump. He called on his followers to fight Trump. He said he supported Kamala Harris, and he said that Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA was his enemy.
Whether he chooses to confront me or not, whether he has dignity and honor or not, it's just a matter of time. My ideas are already there. I've already impregnated your organization. I took Turning Point USA and I fucked it. I took your organization, I took your baby, Turning Point USA, and I fucked it. And I've been fucking it. And that's why it's filled with Groypers. That's why your whole crew, that's why the people around you, that's why your chapter presidents, that's why your attendees, they're all Groypers. So whether you choose to confront me or not over the honor of your Turning Point USA, it's immaterial to me. I'd like it. I just get a sick satisfaction out of it because I like to win.
Yeah, that's not really conservative. I'm not sure how much conservatives or Republicans should listen to someone who has always hated Trump and Republicans and conservatives and Christians. Oh, and then there's just his Hitler stuff.
Look, I'm not obsessed with Hitler. I really don't even know that much about him. Buddy, it's Führer Friday. It is Hitler Friday. Shut up. It is Heil Hitler Friday, nigga. Heil Hitler. All my niggas, Nazis, nigga. Heil. Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool. And any boy knows that. Anybody who watches these videos where he's rolling down the street and stuff, it's like, this guy's awesome. This guy's cool.
Just American general?
Hitler. Oh, American.
Wiggly sent $10, up pointing finger.
If we're going to say Hitler bad, then I'm going to say Churchill bad, and I'm going to say Roosevelt bad, and I'm going to say they're all bad. But if we look at him as a product of his time in that moment, you know, we have to judge him with those things in mind.
Candace Owens is the same way. She thinks the Allies were wrong in the Second World War. Tucker Carlson has said as much. And of course, Candace Owens is against Trump too. Not surprising since she was always a Democrat. The worst thing is that Tucker Carlson, once the leading conservative commentator in America, he has totally flipped. And he's a very good debater. And he has a strong list of contacts from 30 years in the business. And he's got a 30-year history of being outstanding. So his reputation, his goodwill, and his name have brought along millions of people who would normally turn off the TV when someone would praise Venezuela or praise Iran to them.
So the question is why? Why are we doing this? Why are we so opposed to Nicolas Maduro? So if you ask someone on the street, random person, why are we against Nicolas Maduro? The answer you're going to get is, who's Nicolas Maduro? But if you find someone in South Florida, for example, who knows who Nicolas Maduro is, who can identify where Venezuela is on a map, that person will almost certainly say, well, because he's a communist or a socialist, he's exceedingly left-wing, and that is true. Nicolas Maduro and his government are very left-wing on economics, not on social policy, by the way, which is kind of interesting. In Venezuela, gay marriage is banned, abortion is banned, sex changes for transgenderism are banned. It's one of the very few countries in the entire hemisphere with those policies. It is on social policy, not defending the regime, just saying, one of the most conservative countries in North or South or Central America. Only El Salvador really comes close, which is much smaller, of course. And by the way, the U.S.-backed opposition leader who would take Maduro's place if he were taken out is, of course, pretty eager to get gay marriage in Venezuela. So to those of you who thought this whole project was globo homo, not crazy, actually.
He is obsequious to foreign dictators and American enemies, but he's rough with American heroes like Ted Cruz.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
He uses kid gloves with Stalinists, literally someone who praises Stalin.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess.
Well, that's, okay, let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
Yeah, Tucker never actually did get back to Fuentes on that. Can you imagine calling Fuentes a supporter of Hitler and Stalin? Can you imagine calling him a conservative or a Christian? My point is, it's demoralizing out there when some of the biggest microphones in the United States conservative side start aiming at Trump. Like I say, many were never for Trump in the first place or never conservative to begin with. I'm not quite sure how people call them right wing, but now they're just going at Trump and bizarrely the Jews. Mass immigration to the West has brought Islam to the West, including radical Islam, including acute terrorism attacks at worst, and slow burn anti-Semitism and cultural changes like rape gangs. Pretty sure the Jews, a small population that's well assimilated and peaceful, isn't the civilizational problem that we have to face now. There's no doubt that some of this is real sentiment, but there's also no doubt that much of this is bought and paid for. I mean, the dictator of Qatar paid $200,000 to get on Tucker's show. We know that because he actually registered that payment with the U.S. government, as he was legally required to do. But many other forms of payments are not disclosable. More and more I see pundits showing photos of them being wined and dined in Qatar for a meet and greet, where some payment is surely discussed. And then they completely flip. I mean, like Tucker himself did. Tucker used to be against Sharia law. Now he says he likes the idea.
So a lot of Americans are concerned about Sharia law.
Sure.
And they're concerned about polls that show a strikingly large number of Muslims would like to see it supplant civil law in the countries in which they live.
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad.
I don't know of a single Gulf country where it's illegal to proselytize on behalf of another religion. I think that in every Muslim majority country in the world, non-Muslims are treated, have fewer rights.
And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this with a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen.
So you often hear people say, well, Sharia is intolerant, women are treated badly, gays are treated badly. Women have, in the Quran, fewer rights than men do.
I'm not Muslim, I'm not for Sharia law. On the other hand, compared to what? Compared to Baltimore?
In England, it's 4 out of 10 British Muslims. In France, 29% of French Muslims would like to see it replace French law.
You know, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh boy, I hope we don't wind up with that.
But I've seen a bunch of polls like this that show that the attitudes of faithful Muslims are not Western at all, and that they include a tolerance of violence you don't find among, say, Presbyterians or Jews.
You know, shut up. Sharia law.
Meanwhile, a California imam is apologizing after he referred to Jews as filth.
O Allah, liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews. O Allah, count them one by one and annihilate them down to the very last one. Do not spare any of them.
Sorry, Sharia law.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is the same. These people flip.
Today, I took a hard vote as a Christian who supports Israel. I voted no to the additional funding to Israel's defense. This comes after the Republican-controlled House voted for $3.8 billion for Israel's defense, weapons, and replenishment of the Iron Dome. This $3.8 billion is sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk, and he and the Democrats in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate for Republicans, refused to pass this bill, these bills, $3.8 billion that could go directly to Israel's defense.
The whole propaganda machine that has been spoon-fed to Christians, whether it's in the pews at church or Bible study, or coming through the television or through their politicians' mouths, that we have to do everything for Israel. That's the only way we're going to go to heaven. America will be cursed if we don't. That whole lie is breaking apart. And thank God it is, because I, as a Christian, you as a Christian, we know there's only one way, and it's through Jesus Christ. He is our Savior. He died on a cross for us. He rose from the dead in 3 days. He is the one and only living Son of God, and he is seated at the right hand of the Father. And he's going to come again one day to judge the living and the dead. And that is the way you go to heaven.
It seems that anyone who is disaffected by Trump immediately turns into a pro-Qatar, anti-Israel activist. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, anti-Israel quickly blurs into just hating Jews. I see that Russia's version of the CBC, called RT, or Russia Today, is celebrating this grassroots war against Trump, publicizing any little case of some Instagram influencer coming out against Trump.
On Friday, President Trump turned on his top ally in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, after she stood firm in her demand for the files related to alleged sex trafficker and potential Israeli spy Jeffrey Epstein. While Trump not only obstructed them, but actually said they didn't exist for months, another 20,000 emails have been leaked relating to the case of Jeffrey Epstein, a Jewish man with ties to Mossad that ran a pedophilic blackmail operation on his private island. The reason that this is so monumentally damning is because Trump was supposed to be the archetypal figure opposed to the establishment. MAGA was the movement committed to destroying corruption, draining the swamp, and exposing these elitists that we always knew were trafficking and sexually exploiting children. We elected Trump to expose things like Pizzagate and to put pedophiles in jail. Under Trump, Epstein was arrested for sex trafficking minors, and under Trump's jurisdiction, all of these files suddenly didn't exist and Epstein mysteriously killed himself. Uncovering that Trump is involved in this is the deepest level of betrayal, because the Epstein case is the peak archetypal story that epitomizes all of the corruption that Trump swore to fight against. For years now, we've been told that these files didn't exist by our presidents, by our Congress, and by the Department of Justice. The Epstein controversy is forcing Republicans to choose sides. You've got AIPAC congressmen like Troy Niels and Randy Fine standing with Trump, and America First grassroots patriots like MTG, Thomas Massey, Nick and Tucker standing with the American people. This is a civil war. It's MAGA versus America First. You have to pick a side.
Now, surely it's got to be a bad sign when the Russian state broadcaster is boosting the splitists in the Republican base. I'm worried that the general public will be turned off by all this quarreling, and especially by the plain old racism of it. I mean, come on. How could Tucker Carlson platform Nick Fuentes, this guy, for nearly 2 hours?
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up. And I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus' country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
But the troll right, I don't even want to call it the right, has some powerful phrases that they use, or more accurately abuse, or use to trick people. I'd like to talk a little bit about a few of them. MAGA, America First, Christ is King. Permit me to share with you my thoughts on these phrases as I've seen them a lot lately. MAGA obviously stands for Make America Great Again. That's Trump's big idea. It's so simple, almost cliche, but what a powerful slogan. It so obviously wasn't the American government mindset during the Obama years on everything from military matters to diplomacy to the border to trade deals. America was losing or just letting others win. Trump brought back pride to America and confidence and pizzazz, like Reagan did in 1980 after Jimmy Carter's malaise. Now, I don't think anyone is trying to hijack the phrase MAGA, since it really translates into Trumpism. It's so meshed with Trump's own personality, his personal style and pace. I don't think anyone can steal that phrase away from Trump, which is exactly the point of that video that Russia Today loved. They want Americans to switch off of MAGA and onto America First. Now, why would they? Because they're Russian or Qatari or Iranian. Why would they want America First? Well, by the way, America First, if you don't know, is a central campaign platform for Trump. I mean, just go to the White House website and type in the word America First. You'll see countless references. Here's his executive order literally on his first day of the job. I'll read it. Section 1, purpose. From this day forward, the foreign policy of the United States shall champion core American interests and always put America and American citizens first. That was really just the headline. There are so many other details, so many other executive orders on trade, on investment, on energy, on so many things. America First is hardwired right into it. On policing, on drilling. I don't know. It's sort of exciting to have an American who thinks about America. On the UN and environmentalism. Trump hates the UN and environmentalism. There are literally dozens of policies that Trump has proposed, going back decades, really, that fall under America First. I mean, you could dig up old videos of him in the 80s talking about it. But those on the troll right are trying to use America First to attack Trump, which is sort of weird and crazy. Like I say, other than the 7 B-2 bomber strikes and shooting at these narco-terrorist drug boats, Trump hasn't entangled America in foreign wars. In fact, I'm a bit nervous about how some of his peace deals look, like with the former terrorists running Syria, or even his plans to pacify Gaza. I'm not sure if that's even possible. But look, the guy's a peacemaker. He's been living it. But to the troll right, it's not enough. They want a full American retreat. Without it, they warn, hundreds of thousands of Americans will die, especially if Trump bombs Iran's nuclear facilities.
How is the U.S. military, do you think, having spent your life in it, leading troops in combat and at the Pentagon, positioned to respond to war with Iran right now? Are we in a strong position or not, in your view?
No, I don't think we're in a strong position. I think we're probably at the weakest point in our recent history. I think you've got to look at the realities of new weapon systems, new capabilities. The United States Navy, if it's going to preserve its capability at sea, is probably going to be compelled to operate somewheres north and west of Sicily. If it comes within closer range, then it falls into this envelope where the Iranians can strike it. And as I said before, we have to assume the Russians will come into this. Once you move into the Eastern Mediterranean, you are vulnerable to the Kinshal missiles and other missiles, cruise missiles and hypersonic missiles that the Russians have. This makes it very difficult to fly strikes in support of the Israeli Defense Force against Hezbollah, because now you're flying a very long distance, you deliver your ordnance, you have to land in Israel in order to refuel. Israel is going to operate under a hail, if not a rainstorm, of missiles and rockets, making it very, very dangerous to do so. So our naval power, while substantial, may not have the desired impact on the ground that we would like.
Yeah, no, Iran didn't even shoot a firecracker back at America. The troll right was wrong. But they had their mission, which was to stop Trump from attacking their friends in Iran and Qatar. Yeah, no, Iran didn't even, they barely even protested. The anti-Semitic wing of the troll right, they talk about Trump fighting Israel's wars. But in fact, Israel is the one country where U.S. troops are not based. There are nearly 50,000 American soldiers in Germany, have been for 80 years. The U.S. is still in Italy. They never left after the Second World War. They're still in Japan. Did you know that? Still in Korea. Americans never left those places, some of them going back more than a century. There's even a U.S. base in England. What? How? Why? Not to mention many Muslim countries like Turkey and Qatar. Qatar actually has the biggest U.S. base in the region, which costs the U.S. about $10 billion a year. Basically, the American Air Force is defending Qatar. Not quite sure why, not quite sure who agreed to that, but that's how it is. Israel does not have a U.S. base there. They do get about $3 billion a year in annual military aid, which Netanyahu has just announced he'd like to phase out. I haven't heard Qatar or Germany or Japan or Korea talk about phasing out the U.S. military bases in their countries. But I just don't buy it when the anti-Semitic troll right says America fights Israel's wars. In fact, the last 25 years of wars haven't been Israel's wars. They've been Muslim wars, not Jewish wars. Iraq, Kuwait, fighting ISIS, Kosovo, Somalia, Libya. There are even U.S. troops in Syria right now. But my point about America First is that it's not America only, which some of the troll right are using. Because if America isn't going to have a footprint around the world anymore, by the way, I'm not advocating that America withdraw from the world. I'm just pointing out that Israel does not have an American base, and the $3 billion a year to Israel sounds like a lot, but it is a sliver of a fraction of what America spends in other bases, like Turkey and Qatar. If America doesn't want bases around the world, that's fine, but someone else will. I mentioned Syria. There is a Russian air base in Syria right now. If America isn't in Qatar, and I don't think they should be, by the way, Qatar will probably align with someone else, probably China. I mentioned the U.S. deal with Malaysia a moment ago, designed to push out the Chinese and grab the rare earth minerals so China doesn't get them. Trump wants America to protect Christians in Nigeria, Africa. And I think he really means to do it to protect Christians. I think he believes in that. I think it also helps him back in the United States. But I think he also wants America to have a bigger presence in Africa. China has effectively colonized Africa. It's by far the largest investor in that country. Right now, America looks like it's trying to topple Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. Iran and Russia have really tried to colonize that country. Trump wants them out. You could have a worldview against all of this, by the way, against all U.S. foreign aid and against all U.S. military bases around the world, against many of these deals I've mentioned, and that's a principled position to take. You could call it isolationist, libertarian, whatever. I mean, it's not quite principled when Israel is the only beneficiary you're talking about, but if you are for America alone, which is a fair position, you should be ready to accept that China will fill the vacuum. I think that's why Trump wants Greenland, because China was sniffing around to get a base in Greenland. Did you know that? China and Russia are both racing for Arctic resources. Russia's recently built a high Arctic base. Is it America first to have an American base in Greenland? There already is one, by the way. I think so, because the goal is to push the Russians and the Chinese out. Is it an America-only position to have an American base in Greenland? No, obviously not. But going back 200 years ago, the U.S. military projected its might around the world, not to be a globocop, but to protect the interests of the U.S. 200 years ago, more than 200 years ago, 225 years ago, the U.S. Navy was fighting the Barbary pirates off of the Libyan coast to stop the Muslim slave traders who were raiding American ships. Thomas Jefferson was fine with those battles. It was halfway around the world, but it was protecting American interests. So America first, of course, sounds great, very Trumpy. We haven't been able to manage it in trade relations here in Canada. I think that's in part because Mark Carney prefers to fight with Trump for domestic reasons. But America first, in many ways, means Canada first, because it's getting out of wokeness. It's getting towards energy production again. It's deregulating. It's strengthening liberty. I love America first, and I think Canada should be similar. Trump is America first. It's in half his executive orders. He's not America only, and he never has been. Go read his tweets going back 15 years. Because America only is actually another way of saying make way for China or Iran or whomever. But what about the phrase, and I see more and more Republican circles online saying, Christ is king, if you haven't seen it. Now, to me, that's a religious statement, a Christian statement. I think I'm a bit more private about religious discussions than many people are. But whenever I see a Republican activist declare Christ is king, I'm delighted. I mean, isn't that a core tenet of being Christian? And I say that as a Jew because I know that the standard Jewish prayers always start the same way. I'll translate into English. In the Hebrew, it's God, it reference to blessed art thou God, King of the universe or King of the world. So the Jews start every prayer with God, King of the world, which I take to be the analogous saying of Christ is King for Christians. And if you don't believe that Christ is King, I think you're missing the core principle of Christianity. That's sort of what the whole religion is based on, isn't it? It's a foundation for things. Of course, Christ is King. Superior to any flesh and bone king is the meaning. Christ is superior to mortal kings, or for that matter, any mere politician. That's what I love about the phrase, Christ is King. It's a statement that whoever says it puts things above politics, above materialism, that it informs their political beliefs, of course, but Christianity is number one for them. I'm incredibly comfortable with that. In fact, I think the whole world depends on that, because Christianity depends on that, and the safety and prosperity of the world, in my view, depends on Christianity. But if I may, and maybe it's a bit dangerous for me to weigh in here, for much of the troll right, the Nick Fuentes Nazi right, Saying Christ is king isn't a description of one's humility or one's submission to God. It's sort of a test of the other guy, a probe of the other guy to see if they'll agree and who gets to best the other guy. I mean, it's sort of crazy that such an anti-Christian pagan as Nick Fuentes, who idolizes Stalin and Hitler, has the temerity to even use the phrase.
Raise your right hand. All right, everybody raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I will kill, rape, and die for Nicholas J. Fuentes.
Yeah, Nick Fuentes is not Christian. And when people like that use the phrase Christ is king, they're not saying it as a statement of their own faith, but as a kind of trump card, if you pardon the pun. There are some true Christians for whom Christ is king is how they live. But I see too many on the troll right just saying that as a talking point. They actually never go to church. They don't know the Bible. They've never read it. And they live the opposite way. They put politics and punditry and arguing ahead of everything, especially ahead of Christianity. I don't say Christ is king because I'm not Christian. But as you know, Rebel News tries to follow Judeo-Christian values, and an important part of our editorial mission at Rebel is to support Christians and to fight for Christians when they're under attack. Whether that's in Iraq, where, as you know, we crowdfunded $200,000 to help rescue Christian families and get them out of there from the threat of ISIS, or here in Canada, where we helped defend many Christian churches that were targeted during the COVID lockdowns, like Arthur Pawlowski in Calgary, but also a dozen churches from coast to coast. I mention all this because there is a huge battle going on online, MAGA, America First, America Only, Christ is King, and it's gaining momentum because it's being fueled by online robots, fake accounts, obviously administered by foreign actors. I'm not just talking about Russia Today, which is very public about it. I'm talking about Qatar's massive influence operation in America. Almost $100 billion across Congress, colleges, think tanks, and corporations. That's not just bigger than Israel. That's bigger than every other country combined. Crazy thing is Qatar, there's only 300,000 Qatari citizens, only 10% of the people there. It's basically a town with a lot of indentured workers and expats. It's crazy that it's even a country, let alone one that dropped $100 billion buying influence. The trouble, though, with a swarm of robots repeating messages undermining Trump, or pushing for Russia or Iran or Qatar, or generally demoralizing the country, like Tucker taking on Winston Churchill, or when he insults Christian Zionists. Most of it's fake. But young people live online. They're on their phones 12 hours a day. They consume hundreds, even thousands of messages from accounts repeating those same slogans. Turning against Trump, but much more importantly, turning against America. Demanding that America retreat. Not just America first, but America only. The Jews and Israel are the chief threat to the West, and that Christianity should be hostile to Jews and Israel. I mean, I just can't get over Tucker saying he hates no one more than he hates Christian Zionists. Remember that?
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like, what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Now, if you're over 50 years old, it could be that none of what I've just said makes sense to you. You might be saying, what's with the word games? Who cares? It's all slogans. What are you even talking about? I've never even heard of this. Well, that's because you don't have a TikTok account, and you're not on other apps aimed at teens and 20-somethings. I even see high schoolers flipping sides, being groomed online to hate Trump, to hate America, to support Qatar, to despise Israel, to give China and Russia a pass. It's boiling over in America online. I see it starting to splash over into Canada too. And as a pro-Christian, pro-Trump Canadian Jew, I feel that part of our editorial mission at Rebel News is to push back against it and to stand for the national interest, the Canadian interest, and to stand up for harmony between Christians and Jews, and to love the United States, not to hate it, either as the troll right does or as the Mark Carney liberals do. You know, we have here for a decade at Rebel News, we've covered more attacks on churches than any other news outlet in Canada. We've crowdfunded more legal defenses for churches and pastors than anyone else. And I don't know if you remember, but we even once crowdfunded to put a new roof on a church on an Indian reserve. Do you remember that? I believe in America first for Americans, Canada first for Canadians, and I agree with my Christian friends that they ought to believe that Christ is king, and they ought to live that way, more importantly. I don't believe in the splittist information operation that has been unleashed on our teenagers and college students, and unfortunately, we'll have to do as much battle on the troll right as we have typically done on the woke left. What do you think?